Now let's talk about your written report. The written report is something that if you were just to take a look at one and you were to leaf through it, it would seem like a pretty big deal. It would seem like a lot of work. And although it is some work to put it all together, the written report is basically just a booklet collection of everything that you've already done, just put together in one spot, in one book, one report. So that if someone were to just have your written report, they would have all the pieces and parts of your project right there for them to take a look at without needing to even see your pretty beautiful board that you've created. The written report, although it says it should be clearly written, it's going to be typed, and it should be in a logical sequence. As you go through, it should make sense going from beginning to middle to end, with all steps in your work clearly explained. It should essentially tell the story about your observations and should include the following in this particular order. The very first page is going to be a title page. And the only thing on that page is going to be your project name and your name. That's it. You could add some visuals if you want to that, but it's not necessary. That's the only thing that's going to be on page number 1. Page number 2 is going to be your abstract. If you remember from before, you've already created that for your board. So all it is copy and pasting your abstract into this now second page of your document. Page number 3. Because this written report is quite long, you're actually going to create a table of contents here. This is going to say where the rest of the things in your report are going to be located. So specifically what's in there and on what page are they going to be. So it's going to have listed, for example, introduction, page 4, hypothesis, page 5, results, page 8, conclusion, page 10, Christian perspective, page 12, works cited, page 14, those kind of things. Which means 1, you need to have all those things in there, and 2, you need to have page numbers in order to keep track of what is where. On the next page, you're going to have your introduction. Now, this isn't something we've created yet, but it's essentially a few short sentences that go into how you came up with your question and the introduction to your project that you have finished. Next, you're going to have your question and your hypothesis. Then you're going to have a summary of your background information. Remember how you had to do all that background research and you wrote down that summary in your student logbook? Well, you're going to have to copy that over or type that out here, the summary of your background information written in your own words in your written report that led to your hypothesis. Then you're going to include your procedure and your materials list. You're going to include your charts, graphs, any important visuals, and your results. You're going to include your conclusion, including possible relevance and application. It doesn't have it here, but then you're going to be including your Christian perspective. Then it says a reference list. Now for reference list, they mean works cited, so you're going to include that here as well. And then you have an optional includement called acknowledgements. Acknowledgements is if there was a specific person or if there were different groups of people who helped you out with your project in a very special way. Maybe, for example, you have an aunt or an uncle who let you borrow a certain piece of equipment for your project, and so you want to add like a little thank you acknowledgement here. Maybe it was one of your parents who helped you out specifically or a lot more in-depth with your project, then you want to add a special acknowledgement here for them. Maybe it was even a brother or sister who helped with some videotaping or some pictures for your project to really add to that a little bit too. And so whatever it might be, you can add that little extra acknowledgement section if you'd like. It's an optional thing. The next items are required, but only for some of you. So if you had any human participants in your project, then as you know from a previous video and from previously talking about that, you are required to have a letter of information and a permission or consent form. You're going to include blank copies of those here in a separate section called the Appendix. Some of you may have even used different other types of forms like blank questionnaires or tests or anything else as a part of your experiment. And this would be another place where you would include that in this special extra section called the Appendix. And when you put all of this together, and it may be many pages long because of all the hard work that you've done, you have what's called the written report, which is going to go in front of your project. That is basically a collection of all the things that are on your project board as well.